Special thanks to Horizon Therapeutics for sponsoring the Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast, working tirelessly to research, develop, and bring forward medicines for people living with rare and rheumatic diseases. Discover more about Horizon Therapeutics' mission at horizontherapeutics.com.
Don't ever give up. Always advocate for your child. Always stay positive, even in the darkest days when things are the toughest. Believe that things will turn out the way that they're supposed to, and believe that you're going to make it through this storm.
That's our guest this week, Shandra Cubin, the co-founder of Special Hearts, a dating app for parents of kids with special needs. Shandra also has 2 children, one of whom, Koen, has been diagnosed with seizure disorder and hyperlexia. We'll hear Shandra's story and more on this Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. Say hello to host David Hirsch.
Hi, and thanks for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, Fathers Mentoring Fathers of Children with Special Needs, presented by the Special Fathers Network.
The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for dads to support dads. To find out more, go to 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we'd be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad.
And now let's listen in to this conversation between Shandra Cubin and David Hirsch.
I'm thrilled to be talking today with Shandra Cubin of San Diego, California, a mother of 2 young children, a wife, and co-founder of Special Hearts, a dating app for single parents raising children with special needs. Shandra, thank you for taking the time to do a podcast interview for the Special Fathers Network.
Thank you, David, for having me.
You and your husband, Rich, are the proud parents of 2 children, Cecilia, 4, and Koen, 6, who was diagnosed with seizure disorder as well as hyperlexia. Let's start with some background. Where did you grow up? Tell me something about your family.
So I grew up in San Diego, California, born and raised, and I grew up in a law enforcement family, which I think is unique. And my parents were both in law enforcement. My stepdad went on to become chief of police here in San Diego. My mom was a deputy sheriff. My stepbrother was Las Vegas Metro PD. And so I came from this huge law enforcement and lawyer family. I ended up getting into figure skating, which was definitely different, and took that all the way for 21 years. I skated competitively at an elite level and retired out when I was in my late 20s. And that's kind of my interesting story.
Well, that is very interesting. There's a lot of people that are playing by the rules, if you will. If you've got both your parents, your stepdad and your mom were in law enforcement, and your stepbrother. And I don't want to say it sounds like a no fun family, but no doubt there were some rules to be followed. And, you learned from the very beginning a little bit more about what's right and what's wrong.
Absolutely. I think I was on homeschool and home study because of my figure skating from a young age. And so I'm thankful now. I don't think I was that excited when I was younger, but I'm thankful looking back. In retrospect, I lived a very insulated childhood, but I think it was a good thing because I learned discipline. I learned respect. I learned to respect others. I learned to respect laws. And I think that ultimately it really shaped who I am today. And I'm thankful that my parents were on the stricter side, but I got to see things from a different point of view, being a child with both parents in law enforcement. And I think it was a good thing.
That's great. So you mentioned that your stepdad was your primary father figure when you were growing up. And I'm sort of wondering, how would you characterize your relationship with him?
He was fantastic. He was 100% my father. And, I never looked at him as a stepfather. He was just fantastic. And I was daddy's little girl. He's an amazing man. And I learned a lot from him. And, a lot of my foundation was based on his teachings and what he was able to provide for me.
That's fabulous. So in addition to the discipline and respect that you talked about, is there any lesson learned or thing that you've incorporated into your own parenting that came from your father?
Just to be patient. He was always very patient with me. He was always very level-headed. He was always the person that I could go to that I knew wouldn't overreact. And so I would like to be more like him, actually. And it takes work to be that calm, collected parent. But he was always that person for me. He was always the person to right wrongs and walk me through things in a calm fashion. And I wish I could be more like him, but that's definitely what he gave to me growing up.
That's fabulous. So I'm wondering if either of your grandfathers played an influential role in your life, starting on your dad's side and then your mom's side.
On my biological father's side, I would have to say no. On my mother's side, my grandfather, whom I love dearly, is a fantastic man. He was in the Marine Corps, very proud of his service to the U.S., and he went on to become an engineer, worked in aerospace technology, just a brilliant man, and I love him to death. He's still with us, just a fantastic person, fiery, fun, just a comedian, and I could always, depend on him for love and support no matter what.
Well, that's fabulous. Not everybody gets to know their grandparents.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he's still going strong today, doing his thing, and, age doesn't slow him down.
That's fabulous. So from what I remember you saying, you were homeschooled as a young person. I recall you went to the University of Arizona. You took a degree in literature. And when your education ended, I think you'd mentioned you'd spent 20-something years skating. And I'm wondering, I don't know too many people that have pursued a skating career. How did that start and where did that take you?
So I began when I was young, and I had the goal of making it to the Olympic Games. That did not happen. However, I certainly had a substantial amount of success in my skating career. It was a difficult transition when I left because my identity was rooted in my figure skating. Everyone knew me as the figure skater. That was who I was. And so despite the discipline that it taught me and the good times that I had, it was a very difficult transition leaving the world of competitive sports to form a new identity, especially in my mid to late 20s, when most people have a career and they're finished with school and they're starting families and getting married. I felt like I was starting all over again as if I had just graduated from high school. So I was already done with one career at that point. And it was a big life change for me to leave that world.
So where did your career take you from there?
So, as I mentioned, I wanted to go to law school, so I finished my degree. And I thought, I've done so much in regards to pleasing everybody else with figure skating my entire life. And now I feel like I'm just going through the motions, trying to please my family by going into law. I don't know if I should do that. So I changed up everything and decided that, I'm going to do some stuff for myself from here on out.
And where did that take you from a career standpoint?
From a career standpoint, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that degree. I kind of threw around wanting to go into the field of psychology. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get my master's and my doctorate in psychology and I'll go into that field because I would love to work with athletes. I suffered a lot of, I would say, mental health issues that I think a lot of athletes deal with, when you're in those high pressure situations, competing and needing to win and be perfect. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give back to athletes. That's going to be my contribution to figure skating, just athletes in general. And I thought that would really be fulfilling. And it was then, along with my mentor, that we decided, hey, it would be a great idea to put an ice rink, an outdoor holiday ice rink in San Diego at the world famous Del Mar Fairgrounds and at the racetrack. And I sent an email to a rink building company that I knew worked with the NHL. They were the best in the biz. And I met with my future husband in Santa Monica. And after that, when I met Rich in the meeting, pretty much all of those plans changed.
So did the ice rink ever get built?
As a matter of fact, the ice rink did get built. It was actually built when Rich and I were married, and it turned out to be an amazing project, something that we're both very, very proud of. Yeah, but that initial meeting in Santa Monica, California led to Rich and I starting to talk as friends for a while, and then I went to Michigan to work on the Winter Classic because he was doing a rink at Comerica Park and also working on the Winter Classic when it was back there. And from there on out, it's kind of history. We started dating and I decided that I really wanted to be a mom. And again, like I said, all of those plans that I had set in stone definitely changed overnight.
So let's switch gears and talk about special needs. And I'm sort of curious to know, before Koen's diagnosis, did you or Rich have any exposure to the special needs community?
I had a moderate exposure through my grandmother, whom was a school teacher that worked in special needs for 25 years. And she was just such an angel on earth and loved her kids so much. I didn't understand the compassion that she had for these children until we had Koen. But that would be the only experience that I really had, just listening to her story, seeing the compassion, seeing the love that she had for her children in the classroom. And again, like I said, she was just such a special woman, and she was so patient, and her heart was just so full of understanding and empathy for these children that, again, I just didn't understand the depth of her love until I had Koen.
So what is Koen's diagnosis and what's the backstory?
He actually has a seizure disorder, which is something that I've been told now at this point is likely has a genetic component to it, because I probably suffered from it as a child as well, yet undiagnosed. So he deals with that, which is pretty under control at this point. He's also has hyperlexia 3. There are different levels to that. And that would be a hyperlexia with some traits of autism, but something that he will likely grow out of, so to speak, with the proper therapies and interventions. And it's very interesting because all of his deficiencies are slowly but surely starting to kind of rectify themselves. I see it every day that he's slowly but surely improving, and things that used to be challenging are no longer challenging at this point. I think it's somewhat of a unique diagnosis that I hope this podcast brings a little bit of attention to, but it's definitely been a challenge. It's been a challenge and it's been difficult. And one of the things as a mother that's hard for me is he is well aware of his challenges and deficiencies. And that to me is very hurtful, because he understands that, hey, listen, things are tough for me sometimes. And that is hard, as a mother to sit back and watch, because of course I want to step in and save him and make everything easy for him and want him to just have a normal life with no issues whatsoever. But that's not the life that we lead right now. But hopefully in the future, that's something that he'll be able to accomplish.
So my understanding of hyperlexia is that it's when a child starts reading early, like surprisingly beyond their expected ability, and often is accompanied by sort of an obsessiveness with letters and numbers. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. He started reading and writing when he was just turned 3. And we spent a lot of time with him, but it seemed remarkable, especially after we had our daughter, because she's actually a very, very intelligent little girl, but she wasn't hitting the same milestones, if you will, that Koen was when he was 2 and 3 years old. And so he would go in the bathtub And we had him in speech therapy at that point. He would go in the bathtub and he would write his ABCs in paint, or he would write words or his name or numbers. And, it was just so odd to see this 3-year-old little boy writing and reading. He taught himself how to read, which is remarkable. He used phonics. I helped him a little bit, but he was just able to pick up a book and read it. And I've had so many people and doctors alike go, it's just unbelievable to watch this small child read a book. And so when we had him in speech therapy, they definitely understood that there were issues. They didn't give a formal diagnosis at that point. They did assess him and they thought, okay, this is kind of an interesting child. He's not hitting all the markers for autism, but he's definitely has his challenges. And then you kind of put this hyperlexia on top of all of this, and it's very unique. It's very, he's just such a special boy. But, like I said, to see a little 3-year-old reading and writing is something special, certainly.
Well, thanks for sharing. And from what I remember, there was also a diagnosis of DCD, developmental coordination disorder. And I'm wondering how that came about and what were some of the fears or concerns that you had as a parent with this hyperlexia diagnosis?
Well, some of my fears is that it will be very difficult for him to overcome some of his challenges. Certainly, I think any parent that's dealing with a special needs child has those fears, no matter how small or big. And another fear that I have is him not being accepted by his peers. Childhood is difficult enough when everything is seemingly perfect, and then you throw a disability into the mix and kids are cruel. And luckily we haven't experienced anything like that thus far, but that's something that I worry about. And I worry about it affecting him as well. Maybe if he doesn't experience it firsthand from kids in the community, he's very difficult and hard on himself. He's told me before that he feels broken, that he's broken, which is heartbreaking and something that I'm not sure he certainly hasn't heard it from us. But as a parent listening to your son cry and say that he's broken is tragic. It's gut-wrenching. And so these are some of the things that I worry about, that, his challenges will be difficult to overcome. And then he will be so hard on himself that he, will experience depression or other issues that go along with that.
Well, thanks for your transparency. I'm sort of wondering if there's any meaningful advice you've received, either from a therapist, somebody in the medical community, or beyond.
I guess the best advice that I've received, and thankfully we've been able to work with some excellent people, would be that early intervention is key, and just the support that, hey, listen, things are going to be okay. We're always around to figure out what he needs and what's best for him, and just keep the faith and believe that he is going to overcome his challenges, and stay steadfast in your pursuit to make sure that he leads an independent life and that he's healthy and happy. And there are always resources out there for you. And there's always people out there in groups that can support and help and guide you through some of the challenges that you'll face moving on.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. I'm sort of curious to know what, if any, impact Koen's situations had on his younger sister, Cecilia, or your marriage, or the rest of your family, or extended family for that matter.
It's been a very humbling experience, certainly. It changed the trajectory of my life completely, as well as my husband, Rich's. We really kind of suspended our business operations to make sure that Koen is taken care of. It's been completely life-altering. It's been tough. It's wearing, on you at times, and it's hard to stay positive. It's been a huge burden on our relationship, I won't lie. It's been challenging. It's been challenging to try and keep a marriage together in addition to making sure that Koen is taken care of. And there are times that I feel guilty like I'm not there for my daughter as much as I am for my son. And she's only 4 years old, but she is such a special little girl. And she's so patient with him and just so loving and compassionate. She loves him. From inside the womb, she would pretty much only respond to him touching my belly and talking to her. And they've just had this amazing relationship since before she was even born. And I would definitely say he is just the love of her life right now. And thank goodness she's just such a good little girl and patient little girl. But I do feel a certain amount of guilt because Koen does need extra assistance, and I feel like I'm not always there for her. You know, I try to split my time equally, but it's a challenge. But as of right now, you know, we all, thankfully, I have my mom to help us on a daily basis, and she's sacrificed pretty much everything at this point to make sure that Koen gets through what he's going through, and she's with Cecilia every day. And so to have that extra set of hands has made a world of difference. So I don't think that Cecilia is suffering in any way, shape, or form. Maybe I feel the mom guilt at times, but other than that, it's been a real challenge. It's, like I said, it's been a very humbling experience. It changes your outlook on life. It changes your outlook on humanity. I look at people in an entirely different way now. You know, I have a lot more compassion. I have more empathy. I have more patience. And that's just not for my son. That's for everyone in general.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. Thank God for grandmothers. Cecilia's grandmother, your mom, and your own grandmother, right? Who, you know, looking back now, you know, you could put in perspective the empathy and compassion that she had for her students over her long career as a special education teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of curious to know, beyond the speech therapist that you made reference to, if there's any individuals or organizations, for that matter, that have been instrumental in assisting with Koen's situation.
I'll be honest, because it's kind of a unique diagnosis, I would say no. There is a small group of moms, you know, here or there in San Diego that I could connect with at some point. But other than that, I would say that we're kind of on our own. I'm blessed that he had an amazing speech therapist that was just so patient and loving with him. He's no longer working with her because she moved back to Greece. But I credit her for really getting him to start speaking and opening up. But there's not a lot of groups that are geared towards what Koen's dealing with.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the journey could be a little bit lonely then, right? If you don't have others that you can sort of share your own experiences with and maybe reflect on their experiences. And in a perfect world, you would be able to find other parents that have a similar diagnosis, but they were like 3 to 5 years ahead of you, right? So you could sort of peek around the corner or see down the road, you know, what to anticipate and maybe gain some insights or confidence that, hey, you know, things can or will get better. So let's talk about your experience with Special Hearts, this organization that you and Rich have connected. How did the idea come about, and what is your vision for the Special Hearts dating app?
So the idea came about, Koen and I were outside gardening one day, and all of a sudden, like a little whisper from heaven, maybe my grandmother, all of a sudden it popped in my mind. I thought, wow, if I had to be back in the dating scene, it would be very difficult for me. And gosh, how hard must it be for parents, single parents of special needs children that are navigating that dating scene, trying to find somebody special while caring for their special needs child. And so I thought, wouldn't it be a fantastic idea if we created something like Match.com or Tinder that would just be geared towards parents or caregivers or grandparents or whomever that have special needs children or deal with special needs children to a certain degree. And I thought, this might be a really unique site that we could build.
So when did you start it and where is it now?
So we started it a few years ago. I presented it to Rich, and he thought that it was a great idea. But being a successful businessman, of course, he, despite being his wife, wanted a business proposal, so to speak. He asked if I had done any market research and wanted to know if there was anything similar and what the statistics were and what the divorce rates were and statistics of special needs children and so forth in the US and globally. So I got some of that information together and I presented it to him. And I said, I think that we have a real shot of creating something very special. And there was nothing else out there like it. And we went from there. We started working with an app developer. And that took a little bit of time to make sure that everything was running smoothly and it was the way that we wanted it to be. We wanted to make sure that it was very user-friendly and something that would be very easy to download and just kind of figure out on your own. We really focused on simplicity. And we're doing well now. We have almost 1,000 members, and we are continuing to grow organically, and we do the best that we can with advertising, which is very strict on social media when it comes to dating platforms. But we're definitely doing everything that we can to get the word out.
That's fabulous. So I remember visiting the website, which is special-hearts.com, that the mantra is meet, date, and relate. And I'm wondering if there's an anecdotal story or two that you might be able to share from one of the early users, one of these 1,000 members, that might emphasize the program that you have.
Yeah, well, Rich, of course, came up with a meet, date, relate, which I thought was just brilliant because that's what we wanted. We wanted to be able to connect people that can relate to, their situations. And we have had some success. We've actually had some users that have reached out and asked to have their profiles deleted because they did find somebody special and they did want to jump in and start a relationship with that person that they've met. And so it's just so heartwarming to see those emails come across. And, the more the merrier. We hope that happens for everybody. And, at a minimum, hopefully, they can make some good connections and some friendships perhaps, and some love connections, certainly. So we have had a little bit of success connecting people and hopefully those relationships stick.
Yeah, well, from your lips to God's ears, which is what my grandmother used to say. I'm hoping that there'll be similar experience for a good number of your users, which is they made use of the app and they were able to identify a person or some people that they were able to develop a meaningful relationship with as a result of the effort that put out. So if somebody is curious to know about the Special Hearts app, where would they find that? Or how does it work? If somebody said, "Oh, I'm interested," is it free? Is there a cost? How does it work?
So you can visit the website, which is special-hearts.com, and it's very easy to download the app. We also have the app on Google Play Store. So you can either download from the website or you can go on Google Play and download from there. It's free to download and it's free to browse through the users. We do charge a $10 fee for 90 days. We wanted to keep it modest while we're getting off the ground. And we know that parents of special needs children often face a lot of financial hardships, making sure that, their children are taken care of. So that's why the modest price point for right now. And like I said, we've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. So it's a pretty easy download. And on the website, it gives our mission statement and what we're about. In addition to that, we give back to charities. And we would certainly like to give back a lot more, hence why we want to grow this on a global scale. But one of the biggest things that meant the most to us, because we understand the financial strains that come along with dealing with a special needs child, we wanted to be able to give back to some of these organizations that support these parents and do our part. So not only do we want to connect single parents, but we also want to, enrich the community and give back as much as possible.
That's fabulous. Well, thank you for sharing. And I'm thinking about advice now. I'm wondering if there's any advice that you would give a mom or a dad, for that matter, who's raising young children with special needs.
I think the advice that I would give is don't ever give up. Always advocate for your child. Always stay positive, even in the darkest days when things are the toughest. Believe that things will turn out the way that they're supposed to, and believe that you're going to make it through this storm. It can be tough at times. It really can. And it's difficult to stay positive and optimistic. But my advice would be things tend to get better, and just keep that positive mindset and believe in your child and don't ever give up.
Yeah, well, pearls of wisdom. Thank you for sharing. And I'm wondering what, if any, role spirituality has played in your lives.
For myself, I am very spiritual. I would like to believe that there are lessons to be learned from all of this, and I try to find those lessons and make the best of them every day. Like I said, it's difficult at times, but I would like to believe, when I do meet, whomever is on the other side, that I can tell that person or entity that I did the very best that I could. And so I try to find the lessons, that I feel that I'm, being taught with everything that Koen is going through. And I think that would be patience and sympathy and empathy and understanding and compassion, I think, most of all. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe I needed to learn those lessons in life, compassion and empathy, just not for my son, but for humanity as a whole. And so I think that would be my spiritual viewpoint at the moment.
That's fabulous. So I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up.
I would just like to add that, if you're in a situation similar to ours with a special needs child, again, just always advocate for your child. Always believe that things are going to turn out the best way that they can, and be there and be patient and love that child for the unique person that they are, despite their challenges, and give it everything you've got in terms of making sure that they're taken care of and their needs are met, which can be very trying at times, but that's where I'm at right now, I think.
That's fabulous. So if somebody wants to learn more about Special Hearts or contact you, how would they go about doing that?
So you can visit the website, special-hearts.com. You can email us. There's a link at the bottom, and that will be either sent to myself or Rich, and we'll be there to answer any questions. We're also in the process of creating an entirely separate website, which will be specialhearts.com, no hyphen, specialhearts.com, which will again go over our mission statement and our goals and where we're at in terms of connecting people and where we're at with our charity work and so forth. So that's in the works, and that'll be something nice to just kind of review where we stand. And then Special-Hearts is for the download, to download the app, and any questions can be sent to Rich or myself.
Excellent. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes so it's as easy as possible for people to follow up. Shandra, thank you for taking the time and many insights. As a reminder, Shandra is just one of the parents who's part of the Special Fathers Network, a mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. If you'd like to be a mentor father or are seeking advice from a mentor father with a similar situation to your own, please go to 21stCenturyDads.org. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As you probably know, the 21st Century Dads Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, which means we need your help to keep our content free to all concerned. would you please consider making a tax-deductible contribution? I would really appreciate your support. Shandra, thanks again.
Thank you, David.
And thank you for listening to the Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children match up with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for dads to support other dads. To find out more, go to 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we would be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad. Lastly, we're always looking to share interesting stories. If you'd like to share your story or know of a compelling story, please send an email to david@21stcenturydads.org.
The Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast was produced by me, Tom Couch. Thanks again to Horizon Therapeutics, who believe that science and compassion must work together to transform lives. That's why they work tirelessly to research, develop, and bring forward medicines for people living with rare and rheumatic diseases. Discover more about Horizon Therapeutics at horizontherapeutics.com.